What's up everyone? Welcome to Nerd Lore, where we cover all things Marvel. In today's video, I will be discussing who exactly Kamala Khan is, the possible origin of her mysterious family bracelet, and overall how Kamala might fit into the larger MCU landscape past Ms. Marvel. Ms. Marvel was released last Wednesday, and I absolutely love the show. In my opinion, it has one of the strongest opening episodes out of all the MCU shows. I know some people weren't too happy with the changes of her powers, but I personally think it'll help her fit into her role within the Marvels, aka Captain Marvel 2, a bit more organically rather than just being thrown in there. Also, while you're here, leave a like and feel free to subscribe to help support the channel. And now that we have everything established for the video, let's get right into it. To start things off, Kamala Khan, aka Ms. Marvel, is actually one of the more recently introduced characters in the Marvel comic landscape and was an instant hit when introduced. Kamala is a naive and very huge fan of the Avengers and especially Carol Danvers. She's very similar in personality to someone like Spider-Man. Growing up in a very strict household, Kamala was unable to show much of her self-expression until she became Ms. Marvel, unbeknownst to her parents. Her first official appearance as Ms. Marvel is in an all-new Marvel .1 short story where she took out a villain in her hometown, Jersey City, titled The Inventor. Kamala got her powers in the comics after sneaking out to a party one night against her parents' wishes. After being taunted at the party, she opted to leave quite a bit early, and on her way home, the Inhuman Terrigen Mist bomb went off, activating her latent Inhuman DNA. After the bomb went off, Kamala was placed in a crystallized Inhuman cocoon where her powers manifested, and she saw visions of various Avengers such as Captain Marvel and Iron Man. After coming out of this cocoon, Kamala went on to figure out her powers and eventually got permission from Captain Marvel herself to don the Ms. Marvel moniker. In the comics, Kamala can essentially stretch her body into any shape she can imagine and can also shapeshift. This process is done by Kamala being able to share masks with different versions of herself throughout time, in which she essentially time travels. This ability comes with various others, such as a healing factor whenever Kamala reverts to her original form, appearance alteration, and even more. Now, as for the MCU, this has obviously changed quite a bit. Kamala is no longer an Inhuman and can no longer stretch and morph her body as she pleases, but she now wears a bracelet on her arm that can manifest the different shapes she needs, something akin to a Green Lantern ring. I've seen various theories that the bracelet pulls its energy from light, hence why the lights go out when she first puts them on, and also at the AvengerCon event when all the various lights flashes are going off and the bracelet just suddenly starts glowing and working. As for where this bracelet came from, isn't fully actually known. There are two big possibilities as to where this bracelet actually could have come from, with both of them having major implications for the MCU. The first theory, and the one I actually thought of while watching the show, is that it is celestial and or eternal in origin. We know there was a major time period where the Eternals coexisted with Elder Gods, but then also humanity until the events of the Eternals movie. It's more than possible that the Celestials or even Phastos himself created this technology and left it on Earth. The bracelet, the 10 rings, and the Eternal bracelets all look and function awfully similarly to each other and could have been a part of some bigger cosmic or celestial event on Earth that we actually aren't aware of just yet. Now, another more likely theory that I have seen going around is that the bracelet is Kree in origin, which makes a ton of sense as to how Kamala would end up in the Marvels. As we know from the end of WandaVision, Monica Rambeau was escorted by Skrulls up to the new sword base ran by Nick Fury in space. If Nick Fury is there and Captain Marvel is having troubles in space as hinted at various times throughout the show and other times in the MCU recently, it makes sense for Carol to sense the Kree energy being given off by this bracelet and to come down to Earth to see what the energy source is, and also take Kamala to meet Nick Fury to figure out exactly what's going on. If this bracelet is in fact Kree of origin, the question begs as to how they actually got even on Earth to begin with, and why they react the way they do to light. It's possible they got on Earth when the Kree ship came down to Earth that gave Captain Marvel her powers. If that's the case, it's very possible that Carol is already aware of the bracelet's existence and knows the previous wielder fairly well. It would be really interesting to see that somebody was using this bracelet in Earth space and Carol had no clue about it. I think it would actually really baffle me if she had no clue. It's very heavily hinted that either Kamala's grandmother or her aunt wielded this bracelet, as Kamala's mom makes several interesting comments, such as her knowing what happens when people get too much into their fantasy, and also mentioning the word cosmic to Kamala. The package the bracelet came in was from her aunt, so either her aunt wielded them previously or her grandmother wielded them and her aunt was just in possession of them. What is still a very interesting question to me is exactly why her aunt sent over the bracelet if she possibly knew about what it's capable of. With Kamala set to appear in the Marvels, it makes me wonder where she'll be taken overall regarding the MCU. It would make sense to pull from a comic origin and put her on various teams such as the Avengers and Young Avengers. At some point, it seems very likely they will do some form of a Young Avengers team up, whether it will be a small team up inside of a bigger Avengers movie, or we get a full standalone Young Avengers title. We already have a full potential candidates for Young Avengers teams such as Kate Bishop, Wanda's son Wiccan, Spider-Man, Miss Marvel, and the list just goes on. In the comics, Miss Marvel very frequently teams up with Spider-Man and She-Hulk, with She-Hulk being the next character introduced on Disney+. This is something we could very likely see happen in the future. I'm really excited to see where Kamala ends up going, as I already really like her character in the MCU. With her next appearance in the Marvels, and the love the actor portraying Kamala has for both her role and the MCU overall, it seems Kamala Khan has a long star-studded journey ahead of her in the MCU. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe as I post daily Marvel content.